Throughout church history, there have been many people whose names are commonly known, but whose views on matters of faith weren't. John Knox, for example, a reformer who was instrumental in the formation of the Presbyterian Church, advocated violent revolution against the Catholic Church and the monarchy, and condoned the assassination of the Archbishop of St. Andrews, Cardinal Beaton. In this video, I'm going to present a list of ministers and theologians who are considered to have been mightily used of God, along with some of their more shocking beliefs and foibles. Keep these in mind the next time you hear somebody branding one of today's ministers a heretic or a false teacher. Sometimes I think God is more lenient when it comes to bad theology than we are. Augustine believed in baptismal regeneration and that water baptism is necessary for the forgiveness of sins. He believed it was permissible to use force against heretics. He believed that the Eucharist is necessary for salvation. He believed that giving alms is necessary for salvation. He had a Gnostic, dualistic view of the world. He believed that Mary was a perpetual sinless virgin. He believed in praying for the dead. Martin Luther condoned bigamy and polygamy, saying, "I cannot forbid a person to marry several wives, for it does not contradict the Scripture." He also called Jews the devil's children, damned to hell. He opposed the practice of the Anabaptists called the Sitters' Right, where all church members were free to participate in church meetings. He justified profanity, feuding, drinking, and name-calling. He had a hyper-grace view on sin, saying, "No sin will separate us from the Lamb, even though we commit fornication and murder 1,000 times a day." He believed that lying wasn't always wrong. To lie in case of necessity or of convenience or an excuse would not offend God, who is ready to take such lies on himself. He rejected the divine inspiration of the books of Hebrew, James, Jude, and Revelation. He condoned the execution of heretics. He apparently rejected the concept of free will also, saying, "We do everything of necessity and nothing by free will, for the power of free will is nil." John Calvin condoned the execution of unrepentant heretics. He believed that the Eucharist provides assurance of salvation. He believed that his church, the Reformed Church, was the one true church offering salvation. Much like Martin Luther, John Calvin called his opponents terrible names. He also, like Luther, was anti-Semitic. He condoned execution for offenses like fornication, adultery, idolatry, etc. He believed that God created some people for eternal damnation. Jonathan Edwards condoned owning slaves. He believed that the Pope was the Antichrist. He believed that the revival that was happening in his day was God's final work on the earth. He believed that the bodily manifestations and fanatical behavior in his meetings were normative during a revival. He believed that mystical experiences were part of the Christian experience. John Wesley believed in ghosts and other paranormal phenomena. He believed in the perpetual virginity of Mary. He owned a static electricity machine, believing that people should be electrified daily for their health. He read books by adherents of Quietism, a mystic group promoting contemplative prayer. He approved of the teachings of Montanus, who started a heretical movement in the early church. D.L. Moody promoted ecumenicism, and like Wesley, he read books by the Quietists. He believed that all 10 commandments must be followed. And finally, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. rejected the doctrine of the virgin birth of Jesus, rejected the deity of Christ, rejected the doctrine of the Trinity, rejected the doctrine of the atonement, rejected the bodily resurrection of Jesus, and rejected the doctrine of the second coming of Christ.